The rain had begun softly, almost as if the sky itself was hesitant to fall. Streetlights glowed through the mist, reflecting in tiny puddles that formed along the quiet streets of Maplewood. Inside a small, warmly lit house at the end of Willow Lane, Emma sat by the window, wrapped in a soft blanket, her hands cradling a cup of steaming tea. Outside, the world seemed peaceful, almost gentle, but inside her heart, a quiet ache lingered, a longing for something she couldn't quite name. Emma was 34, with soft brown hair that fell in waves around her, shoulders and eyes that had grown used to observing life quietly, rather than taking part in it. She lived alone, not because she wanted to, but because life had a way of leading her down roads she hadn't expected. Her home was cozy and neat, with little reminders of dreams she once had, books stacked on a shelf, a half-finished painting leaning against the wall, and a guitar tucked into the corner. It was a house full of possibility, yet still, she often felt a quiet emptiness. Tonight she had allowed herself a rare moment of pause. Normally, her evenings were busy with work or errands, leaving little time for reflection. But tonight, something made her linger by the window longer than usual. Maybe it was the rain, or the way the dim streetlights flickered, casting soft shadows across her living room. Or maybe it was the ache in her chest, a subtle reminder that life was full of unseen doors she had yet to open. She sipped her tea, watching the drops race down the window pane, each one carrying away a little piece of the day's tension. Emma's thoughts drifted to the small, quiet dreams she had tucked away over the years. A life filled with laughter and music. Moments that mattered, even if no one knew about them. The life she had imagined in those late-night daydreams, walking through the streets of a city she had never visited. Meeting someone who understood the music she kept locked in her heart. Feeling a connection that went deeper than words. A knock at the door startled her. It was soft, hesitant, almost polite in its timing. Emma froze, her heart skipping a beat. At first, she thought she had imagined it. The rain drummed on the roof, and the wind rustled the branches outside, blending perfectly with the sound of the knock. But then it came again gently, insistently. Emma set her cup down, the warmth leaving her fingers. She moved slowly toward the door, her bare feet making soft sounds on the wooden floor. She paused for a moment, hand on the doorknob, 1,000 thoughts crossing her mind. Who could it be at this hour? The town was quiet. The streets were empty. Yet, the sound of that knock carried something strange, something familiar, though she couldn't yet place it. Her mind wandered, imagining the possibilities. A neighbor needing help? A friend she had lost touch with? Or perhaps, in the most impossible way, someone from a past she had tucked neatly into the corner of her memories. Emma's heart thudded in her chest, a mixture of curiosity, hope, and something she didn't dare name, a gentle anticipation that made her chest tighten in a way that felt almost like longing. She opened the door slowly. Outside, rain clung to the branches of the porch, and the night smelled of wet earth and the quiet peace that follows a gentle storm. And then she saw him, or rather, someone standing there, silhouetted in the soft glow of the porch light. He was drenched, hair damp, clothes sticking to him slightly from the rain. And yet, despite the unexpectedness of it all, he looked familiar. Not in a startling, obvious way, but in a subtle, unplaceable way that tugged at some hidden corner of her heart. Emma hesitated. "Can I help you?" she asked softly. Her voice carried more curiosity than caution, more hope than fear. The figure shifted, offering a small, apologetic smile. I wasn't sure where else to go," he said, voice calm and gentle. "I didn't mean to bother you." Emma noticed the tiredness in his eyes, a hint of loneliness that mirrored her own. And in that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a quiet recognition, a soft spark of connection that made her wonder if life sometimes had a way of leading people back to the right doors. Even if years had passed, she stepped aside. "Come in," she said. Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of invitation, and maybe, just maybe, a little hope. As he stepped onto the warm floor of her home, the rain dripping from his coat, Emma couldn't help but feel that something was about to change. The night, which had started quietly and peacefully, now held the promise of something unexpected. Something tender. Something that would stir the corners of her heart she had long kept hidden. And as the door closed softly behind him, Emma felt the first flicker of a feeling she hadn't realized she'd been waiting for, a feeling that tonight everything might be different. The rain continued to fall outside, but inside, a quiet warmth settled over the room. For the first time in a long while, Emma allowed herself to imagine that her life could hold something more than routine, something more than quiet longing. She allowed herself to hope. And with that single knock, her night and perhaps her life had quietly begun to change. Emma poured 2 cups of tea, the steam curling in soft spirals, filling the room with warmth and the faint scent of chamomile. Daniel, her unexpected guest, sat quietly at the small wooden table, hands wrapped around the cup as if it could anchor him. The rain had slowed outside, leaving a gentle patter on the roof, almost like a lullaby. For a moment, neither spoke. Words felt unnecessary. The quiet shared between them was familiar in a way Emma couldn't quite explain. It reminded her of a time long ago when life seemed simpler, yet hearts felt full with unspoken emotions. She remembered the first time she met Daniel years ago, in a sunlit college library. He had been struggling to reach a book on the top shelf, and she had offered to help. His smile had been shy but warm, and something in that small exchange had made her heart stir in a way she had never experienced before. It wasn't grand gestures that connected them, but tiny moments. The way he always remembered her favorite coffee order, even if she forgot to mention it. The soft laughter they shared over silly mistakes in group projects. The way he listened when she spoke about dreams she barely admitted to herself. Her love for painting, her quiet desire to see the world, the little hopes that often felt too fragile to voice aloud. Emma took a sip of her tea, recalling the afternoons they spent under the old oak tree near campus. They would sit in silence sometimes, letting the sunlight dance across their notebooks and sketches. Daniel had a gentle way of noticing everything: how the leaves turned, how the sky shifted from gold to pink in evening light, even the smallest flicker of expression on Emma's face. "I remember that," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, though Daniel looked at her with curiosity. "Remember what?" he asked, his eyes warm and attentive. "That day under the oak tree. You made me laugh so hard that my stomach hurt," Emma said, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I don't think I've laughed like that in years." Daniel's smile widened, though there was a faint shadow in his eyes, a mixture of nostalgia and a touch of regret. "I remember too." It felt effortless, like everything in the world was in its place, just for that moment. They sat in companionable silence again, each lost in the memories that had brought them here. Emma thought of how life had pulled them apart, the graduation that sent Daniel to a different city, the jobs that demanded long hours and new routines, the misunderstandings that seemed too trivial to fix at the time. Distance had grown slowly, quietly, like ivy climbing a wall. They had promised to stay in touch, but life had a way of moving faster than good intentions. And yet, here he was, standing on her porch in the rain, a living reminder of the past that had never truly faded. Emma realized that those old memories weren't just echoes. They were seeds of something that had always wanted to grow. Daniel stirred slightly, breaking the spell of nostalgia. "It's strange," he said softly. "How life takes you to places you never expected. You meet people, you lose touch, and years later, you wonder if you missed your chance." Emma looked at him, feeling a flutter of emotions she had long hidden. "Maybe we didn't miss it," she replied gently. "Maybe it just waited." The room felt warmer, not just from the tea or the soft lamplight, but from the quiet connection that had always existed between them. Their laughter, their conversations, the simple comfort of each other's presence. All of it seemed to flow naturally again, like a river that had been diverted, but never truly stopped. Emma remembered how she had admired him from afar at times, not in a dramatic or obsessive way, but in a quiet, gentle way that made her heart beat a little faster when he smiled. And Daniel, she sensed now, as she looked into his eyes, had always seen her, in ways others never had. Those small moments of recognition, of understanding, had left marks on both of them, invisible but enduring. "You always had a way of noticing things," Emma said, almost to herself. "Even the things I tried to hide from the world." Daniel's expression softened. "Maybe I always hoped you'd notice me too," he admitted. The words hung in the air, not heavy or demanding, but tender, like the first light of morning. Emma felt a quiet warmth spread through her chest. She realized that nostalgia wasn't just about missing the past. It was about acknowledging the feelings that had always been there, waiting for the right moment to return. Outside, the rain had nearly stopped, leaving droplets shimmering on the leaves and pavement. Inside, the room felt suspended in time, as if the years of separation had been erased for these few moments. They didn't need to speak of what might come next. It was enough to simply be present with each other, letting the past quietly remind them of the bond that had always existed. And in that gentle, unspoken way, Emma knew that tonight was not just about remembering. It was about the possibility of something more. A connection that had begun years ago, softened by time, but not broken. The night stretched on, calm and quiet, carrying with it the weight of memories and the gentle promise of a future that neither of them had expected but both quietly hoped for. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the streets glistening under the soft glow of early morning lights. Emma and Daniel sat across from each other at the small wooden table, their hands wrapped around warm cups of tea. Outside, the world was quiet, the air filled with the gentle scent of damp earth and fresh beginnings. For a moment, they simply watched each other, letting the silence speak for them. It wasn't an awkward silence, nor was it filled with tension. It was the calm of two people who had once known each other deeply, whose connection had never completely faded. No matter how far life had carried them, Emma noticed the familiar curve of his smile, the subtle warmth in his eyes, and a quiet steadiness in the way he sat. Daniel, in turn, observed the small details that had always stayed in his mind. The gentle tilt of her head when she thought, the way her eyes lit up with soft curiosity, the faint laugh lines that spoke of years filled with quiet moments and stories untold. "You haven't changed much," Daniel said softly, a gentle note of nostalgia in his voice. "You're still you." Emma smiled, a small, almost shy gesture. "Neither have you," she replied. "But maybe we've both grown a little." There was a pause, a subtle moment where they both seemed to measure the space between past and present, memory and reality. And in that pause, something tender began to bloom, recognition that what they had once shared had never truly left them. "I keep thinking about how life takes us away from the people we care about," Daniel said quietly, "and how sometimes it brings us back in the most unexpected ways." Emma nodded. "I know what you mean. It's like the world keeps nudging you toward what matters, even if you don't realize it at first." Her fingers traced the rim of her cup as if finding comfort in the simple warmth. The conversation moved gently, shifting from memories to the present without losing the soft intimacy of shared understanding. Daniel spoke of the small joys he had found in recent years, the quiet mornings, the books he loved, the walks through unfamiliar streets. Emma shared her own experiences, the paintings she had returned to, the music she had begun to play again, and the small victories of creating a life that felt meaningful and her own. There was no rush, no pressure. Only the quiet unfolding of moments between two people who had always cared more deeply than they realized. Their laughter came in soft bursts, natural and unforced, like sunlight filtering through leaves. And in the spaces between words, the old emotions returned, gentle, careful, but undeniably present. Daniel leaned back slightly, studying Emma as she talked about a painting she had recently completed. "You always had a way of seeing things others miss," he said. "I think that's part of why I've always remembered you." Emma felt a quiet warmth spread through her chest. "And you," she said, her voice soft. "You always noticed, even when I didn't say anything. You listened in ways no one else did." Their eyes met, holding a moment that spoke volumes without a single word. It was a connection that went beyond the small talk or the memories. It was recognition of the depth of understanding and care they had always shared. Daniel shifted in his seat, offering a gentle smile. "I never thought I'd have the chance to say all this again," he admitted. "To really be here, with you, without the interruptions of life pulling us apart." Emma reached out briefly, placing a hand near his on the table, not touching, but close enough to feel the warmth of his presence. "Maybe that's what tonight was meant to be," she said softly. "A chance to remember, and to start again." The room felt quiet, safe, and full of the kind of calm understanding that only comes from people who have shared meaningful history. Outside, the morning light grew stronger, casting a soft glow across the room. The rain had washed away more than just the night. It had cleared the space for a gentle, renewed connection. Neither of them needed to rush to define what this meant. The simple fact that they were together, sharing the same space, talking, listening, and laughing quietly, was enough. It was a tender reminder that some connections aren't lost, they wait patiently for the right time to return. Emma realized that she felt lighter, as if the weight of years apart had been softened simply by the presence of someone who had always mattered. Daniel seemed to feel the same, his expression thoughtful yet calm, a quiet gratitude in his eyes. As they finished their tea, the moment felt suspended in a soft, golden light, a pause in time where the past and present existed together, quietly blending into something hopeful. It was a reminder that life sometimes works in gentle, unnoticeable ways, nudging hearts back to where they belong, even after years of separation. And as Daniel stood to leave, preparing to step back into the streets washed clean by rain, Emma felt a quiet certainty, whatever came next. This night, this encounter had already changed them both. Not in dramatic ways, not in urgent leaps, but in the quiet turning of hearts towards something familiar and true. Sometimes, Emma thought, all it takes is one evening, one conversation, and the courage to open the door, and everything quietly begins again. The morning light filtered softly through the curtains, painting the room with golden streaks that made everything feel calm, peaceful, and full of possibility. Emma and Daniel had finished their tea, the empty cups resting quietly on the table, a small symbol of the hours they had spent together. The air between them was comfortable now, filled with the gentle weight of words that had been shared, and memories revisited. Daniel stood by the window, watching the rain-soaked streets glimmer under the sunlight. He took a deep breath, the kind that carries more than just air. It carries years of thought, unspoken feelings, and the quiet longing of what could have been. Emma sat across from him, hands folded on her lap, feeling the same anticipation she had felt when she opened the door the night before. Finally, Daniel turned to her, his expression soft but resolute. "Emma," he began, his voice steady yet gentle. "There's something I've wanted to say for a long time, something I probably should have said years ago." Emma's heart stirred, a mixture of curiosity and quiet hope. "What is it?" she asked softly, leaning slightly forward, her eyes meeting his. "I've always valued our time together," Daniel said, more than I could ever explain at the time. "And I think I've always cared for you more deeply than I realized. Not in a rush or in a dramatic way, but in a way that quietly shaped how I saw the world and how I wanted to live in it." Emma felt warmth spread through her chest, a gentle recognition that she had carried the same feelings in her own heart, softly, quietly, and respectfully. "I think I understand," she whispered. "I felt it too, even when I didn't say anything. Even when life pulled us apart, I never really forgot." There was a pause, a moment suspended in the calm sunlight, where past and present intertwined. The memories of laughter under the oak tree, the small shared smiles, the hours spent talking and dreaming, all of it seemed to settle into a gentle clarity. It wasn't about what had been lost, or the time that had passed. It was about what they had now, and the quiet possibility that it might continue. Daniel smiled. Not in a rush, not in urgency, but with a soft calm that made Emma's heart feel steady. "I don't know what the future holds," he said, "but I do know that tonight was meant to happen. And whatever we choose from here, I want to make sure it's real, honest, and shared." Emma nodded, a quiet understanding in her eyes. "I think that's the only way it should be. No expectations, just truth and presence." They sat together in silence for a while, watching the sunlight drift across the room. Words were not needed. The connection between them was clear, quiet, and deeply comforting. There was no pressure, no grand declarations, only the shared understanding that they had found each other again in a way that felt genuine and grounding. Then, with a gentle smile, Daniel asked, "Would you like to take a walk? Just around the block. Enjoy the morning?" Emma returned the smile, feeling a quiet joy she hadn't realized she was missing. "I'd like that," she said. They stepped outside together, the streets of Maplewood washed clean by the rain. The world smelled of fresh earth and possibility, and with every step, Emma felt a sense of lightness, as if the years of waiting, longing, and quiet reflection were finally finding their place. They walked slowly, side by side, their conversation soft and natural. They spoke about everyday things, favorite books, the smell of rain, the small joys of the morning. But beneath it all lay a gentle, unspoken connection that neither needed to define in words. Sometimes it was enough just to walk together, to share space and time with someone who truly understood your heart. As they reached a small park, the sunlight breaking through the trees made everything glow. Daniel paused and looked at Emma, his eyes reflecting both gratitude and quiet hope. "I don't know where this will go," he admitted, "but I know I'm glad we have this today now." Emma smiled, a soft, heartfelt smile. "Me too, and sometimes that's enough." They continued walking, the morning unfolding around them, each step a reminder that life doesn't always need grand gestures to be meaningful. Sometimes it's the quiet moments, the shared memories, the gentle words, the courage to speak honestly, that shape hearts and bring fulfillment. By the time they returned to Emma's house, a gentle understanding had settled between them. No promises were made that couldn't be kept. No pressures were applied that didn't belong. They simply shared a truth that had been hidden for years, and in that sharing, something beautiful had quietly begun. As Daniel prepared to leave, he turned to Emma and said, softly but sincerely, "Thank you for letting me in, for sharing this time. It means more than I can ever explain." Emma nodded, feeling a peace she hadn't known she needed. "Thank you for coming," she replied. It made all the difference. And as the door closed gently behind him, Emma realized something profound. Hearts can wait, memories can linger, and connections can return. Life's quiet moments filled with honesty, patience, and understanding can change everything without shouting or demanding. Emma walked back to the window, looking at the streets now bathed in warm sunlight. Her heart felt lighter, her mind calm, and her spirit full of a quiet hope. She knew that no matter what the future held, she had allowed herself to feel deeply, to reconnect meaningfully, and to embrace the beauty of human connection. Sometimes, she thought, all it takes is a knock, an open door, and the courage to speak the truth, and life quietly begins again.